Hello everyone, today traditionally a video that comes once a year in Schwerpunkt and that I really care very much about. A numismatic gift that I received from one of my early followers and friend now. We've never met, but since the beginning of Schwerpunkt, once a year I received this gift of his. He's not really a numismatist or has a formal historical background. Actually, he's a physicist, but he has this great passion for ancient coins, and he thought to contribute to Schwerpunkt through this donation. I was always very glad to show you this gift, because it's, as a matter of fact, a gift to the community. So I want to thank the guy, as always, very much for help. We're both in Europe. We have this, this shipping, and we tend to also confront on the channel sometimes. Whenever I can offer an explanation about money symbolism, or I'm actually interested in the coins, because that's how it began. Like, I honestly, and he knows that, I had no interest whatsoever in coin. I had it cursorily, just like the many history things that can be out there, and of course I'm by no means an expert on the topic, but thanks to this gift I learned a lot about the same coins. I discovered a world, especially of iconography, but also part of the technical side of the story behind the archaeology, the history of these pieces that have deeply contributed to Schwerpunkt. And today, and you know that I have 0 sponsors, and I do not plan to have any on the channel, so this is not it, but I want to help out our donor by showing you his site, which I will do very primitively here, like, just because so far I showed you the coins. By the way, the magic behind Schwerpunkt's scenography here is that I actually record the audio before, then I film, I listen to myself, which is the only time I actually ever do when I upload the videos, and make the video of what I'm talking about, pointing out, of course, what I want to show you. So with this very primitive means, I can show you here briefly the site. I will leave you all the necessary links. Nummi Antiqui, this is the quite spot-on name, and here just I can simply show you the wealth, the abundance of this guy. Has a massive collection of course, not just wonderful. That's how I began, to evaluate these coins that I, of course, have no further expertise on, just by background, because it's a very complex thing, but also quite rare, sought after, peculiar in many ways coins for really everybody's interest, from the top numismatologists and antiquists that really want to grab some of these very fine treasures, as much as, in fact, even the beginner. So this is a sale offer here that I would really make you consider, just to have this. And I must say it, for my personal experience, as again not being particularly involved in numismatics, but having this incredible sensation of really having in your hand really a piece of history that as also if you have already seen the previous gift videos that I made, like very precise, place, history behind the place of origin, symbolism, etc., that can really make you say, my God, this thing does come from there. And this is what we'll see here with these 5 amazing pieces we will see today as well. So again, Nummi Antiqui. I will leave you everything down below, as far as the links, the home and the sale page. There is also a blog, contact. The guy appreciates, of course, the interaction with his buyers. He is also here quite open to refunding in case of fabrications, falses. People are skeptical about this stuff, but actually he has quite an eye for that. and you can absolutely rely on all these coins being quite authentic and really giving you this amazing opportunity of building your own collection, your own expo. I have it in one of my cases here in my room, all well orderly, and here I can't show you because I have to open a couple of things, but you can go back in the, I think it's in the, and yes, there is a numismatic gifts playlist, right, and it's very easy to find in Schwerpunkt. So if you really want to see all the coins that are growing, something I'm very, very glad of, check that out, and especially check out Nummi Antiqui, so that this is a gift to the entire Schwerpunkt community. I own them, but I'm very glad to make this content for the sake of the channel, historical disclosure, and more. So again, I always thank my friend for this, and this has been really a great contribution to the channel, and I can't thank him enough. So let's actually pass directly to the coins today, because this is also amazing just to relearn for me, even though I have prepared the adequate information. By the way, this guy provides me all the time with some further insight on the coins, because if you Google them, there are lots of these other, like, important sites that rank, that are evaluate these coins and all this stuff, that provide you with a quite standardized formal amount of data, second, etc. But this is very interesting for me as a historian. You realize that there is always some detail that is not entirely clear about the iconography, about maybe the date. There are also mistakes regarding this in this catalogs. So very often, in fact, our donor has provided me with some further insight that could not be found publicly, and we tried to sort out together, in fact, some symbolisms and meanings. So we have, of course, to surrender to the fact that there is always something that we cannot fully know about either the iconography or some certain specific historical information. Our donor is also a very meticulous, precise, very careful person, which is extremely good for this kind of things. Was kind enough to let us know, and I read straight in part here. I will say it from his messages. Hi, last year the theme was cavalry. This year it was, if you remember, this year it is Roman propaganda and victory celebration, plus one Syrian chthonic deity, because I managed to sort of fixate him with our Apollonian Dionysian stuff. This is Schwerpunkt's effect as far as religious history is concerned. And we begin with this amazing silver denarius coming from the Mint of Rome, weighing something like 3.8 grams, diameter, you can see here, 17 millimeters, dating, as we will see now, somewhere around 55-58 BC. In the obverse, displaying the writing, it's abbreviated, but extensively would be Publius Fonteius Publi Filius Capito Triumvir, and the helmeted and draped bust of Mars, with a trophy over his shoulder. This is the Spolia Opima, basically, and so Mars Ultor, saying the role, of course, of Roman religion is Mars, the hero of that. Also, well, it's complicated because, as you know, Roman religion passed from an archaic phase that was also almost forgotten in the explicit meaning in this very first century BC. And then, things developed further, but it has, of course, to do with the with the sacred royalty. We have seen the video about the Sol Invictus as well. On the reverse, we have the same MN font term mill, and an image of a warrior, a Roman warrior, on horseback, thrusting his spear at a Gaulish enemy, who was about to slay an unarmed third combatant. Right, this is particularly interesting. Essentially, the Monier at the time when the Moni was struck here was likely the nephew of the Manius Fonteius that is remembered in the on the coin. The Monier was possibly a friend of Cicero, and the reverse of the coin probably, we do not know it with certainty, but it depicts the exploit of the Monier's uncle, while he had been the governor of Gallia Narbonensis between 76 73 BC, right? And the interesting thing is that his uncle, Manius Fonteius, was also a Monier, right? These were just a minor office that was taken by an important one, of course, in Roman administration, in the heart of Rome, controlling the actual striking, the minting process with all the precious metal, etc. And that these Moniers tended to make a bit of propaganda of their own family, of their own ancestors, and of course it was perfectly fine. Everybody did that, and the coin itself dates to sometime between, some say 58 BC, so the same. This is the beginning of the Gallic Wars, basically, and there may be a connection. Some others say 55 BC. As our donor writes, quote, "It was very common for Moniers to depict famous and glorious deeds of their late ancestors or family members. No one can be sure which battle or which ancestor is depicted on the coin, because eventually he added that, as we'll see now, the Manius Fonteius of 85 BC, because he was in fact a Monier in that very year, so it makes it extremely likely. But still, it is true that generally speaking, we do not have, especially with the Roman homonymy, as far as the generally speaking, even the name records is concerned. We just know because of different dates sometimes individuals of the same families, often call themselves in the same way. And so here says the Monier's uncle is a good guess. And he rightly points out the scene is quite intriguing, because as we've seen, the Gaul is about to kill a naked unarmed man, and helmet and shield, as we can see here, are scattered around, and Fonteius is about to thrust the Gaul, protecting the naked man. Right, his counter equipment seems to be Gallic rather than Roman, which makes sense as a consideration, because if you look at the Roman guy, he looks much more Olympian, right, in some sort of even Hellenic influence that was pretty strong in Roman. I mean, talking mostly the helmet, and sort of more anatomic. There's some italic here. You can't really look at the image and say, okay, well, now we recognize the type of armor or whatever, especially of the rider. The goal is definitely, like you see the scutum, that, as you know, was pretty much the same between the Romans and the Gauls, and this helmet, which, yes, there were also some Hellenistic types, think about the Boeotian one, etc., but it could symbolize a broader, tellurically. We made lots of videos about also the religious symbolism of, the material culture as far as metallurgical capacities were concerned to produce this arms and armor as a sort of, again, material extension that is failure for man instead of a spiritual defense or armament, whatever. But it does make sense, again, especially considering that guy had been in Gaul, had been governing in those places. And here I have an hypothesis that I'm not sure it's actually pertinent to the whole thing. here, just let's finish reading. Says this Gallic man, yes, seems to be Gallic rather than Roman. If it is meant to belong to the naked men, why is Fonteius saving another Gaul? Or is it meant to be a Gallic auxilia or Gallic ally fighting for Rome? Well, yes, I believe it is. This case, what fascinates me as a general, I can't help but looking at the chronology here of the Gallic Wars. I mean, Caesar was fighting far and wide against the Gauls. And when celebrating his ancestor, Monier may have simply maybe stressed one aspect of the Roman international policy and propaganda and the general excuse, the casus belli for intervening into Gallic affairs. Aside from the broader Germanic threat to Gaul that had been heavily destabilized in Teutonic times, but as you know, the Helvetii marching west into the Gallic heartland were the ones who triggered Caesar's intervention. And so here the idea that a Roman was fighting, here we think they are Celts, specifically Gauls, because of the aforementioned reason, and that Rome was essentially intervening. So the Romans had interiorized the idea that they were intervening to save other Gauls that had instead historically, as many other think about the Iulianus. I also made a video about them. Traditionally Roman allies, right? And so were in fact seeking for Roman protection actively, even though they knew what cost it had on the longer run, but contingentally they hoped to save some autonomy through sheer survival against these other tougher groups. May have been reintegrated in this coin's symbology, because again the Monier's ancestor had maybe done something similar on a smaller scale. Now Caesar was doing it, and the Romans were involved in Gaul in that sense. And so it's always the same idea that also Virgil would re-express, etc., that Rome fundamentally acts as a broader justice maker of a world order in which everybody was under this divine race, and that that entailed, of course, a Roman protection over their allies. So in my opinion, this is an interesting, so not necessarily a Caesarian propaganda, but a broader, let's say, motive that could resonate with the people of Rome at the time of Caesar conquest of Gaul, in that this guy felt, okay, my ancestor was there one generation ago, he did something similar, maybe I will exploit this connection because it's just the times, right? For the rest, actually, this type of iconography, like your ancestor that is represented first of all as a knight, the Romans were fixated with this, that crushes the barbarian, etc., is otherwise very common. What is not common is the naked, unarmed, defenseless guy that is saved by the Roman. This is a quite peculiar type. I don't know whether there are other examples from the same iconography, but it's worth pointing out because it's a quite explicit meaning. By the way, I almost forgot, this is a map showing the locations where this type of denarius with Fonteius was found. I don't think there is a way to know where this specific coin comes from, where it's dated here. It's traceable, usually, as far as I understand. I may be wrong, but these coins circulate. These are just tracked certain locations where, say, where they were found, they were mapped, but let's say, or later on in this specific case, but with some certainty. I think these coins are gathered in more or less, forgetful ways, and then they get grouped all together, and you can't really tell where they come from. But of course, it shows a nice location. Beyond this area, there is no other distribution. It's all very interesting because you find the stuff, especially across the Danube, right? So of course they would circulate for a while, but aside from, of course, the obvious Italian concentration, here you see an important one, even more than Gaul or Spain. Well, of course, the criteria that were found, of course, there were lots of them, so this is not really a statistical evidence, if not, again, for the Italian peninsula, because, say, by scale, you can imagine more or less things being leveled, but, of course, there are lots around still. Let's pass to the second, which is a Septimius Severus denarius. Silver, Roman mint of Rome, I mean, is a weight of 3.5 grams, a diameter of 18 millimeters. There is a question on dating. Some say 200, others say 201, right? But this, the Saint Donor says, I don't know which one it is really myself, but I would add it. It's not excessively important. If you look at the piece itself, it's quite interesting itself. On the obverse, you can see Severus Augustus let's read it, Augustus Particus Maximus. You see the laureate head, and the reverse has Restitutor Urbis, so the restorer of Rome. The flattering appellation was given not for the rebuilding or embellishing of Rome, but rather for the fact that Septimius Severus had restored the honor of the Eternal City by having avenged the death of Pertinax, securing domestic tranquility to the empire, and also because of the victories over the Parthians that had re-established the respect for the Roman name. Severus standing in military attire, sacrificing over flaming tripod, altar from the patera in the right hand, and you see this spear on the left hand. This is pretty much it. Quite beautiful itself. Let's pass to the third, which is an Aurelian Bedion, right? Bedion Antoninianus, that how our donor specifies here the term Antoninianus, Aurelianus, et similia, are just modern numismatic terms as denominations. They weren't called like that at the time, right? And we do not actually know how they did, right? Perhaps just a double denarius, he says. We can see it here with a bit of a green patina from the third officina of Serdica, that is today's Sofia, Bulgaria. It was the third officina of the local mint. The coin weighs 3.6 grams. The type has a maximum diameter of 24 millimeters. We can read on the chronology is from November 274 to September 275. Right? I don't have the specifics of why, but evidently Aurelianus was connected with his presence in this center that was also, along the Danubian frontier, was becoming sort of the seat of the comitatus of the court, and so there was not really a uniformity. We've seen it in other ways in the way way coining in general was issued and minted. Right, it had to do with the local availability of precious metals, what kind of the symbolism was ideated, like with the general political situation. On the obverse, we read, of course, Aurelianus Augustus. The bust here is radiated and cuirassed. Right, so you understand, of course, as we will see better now, the Sol Invictus connection from the crown. On the reverse, we see restituit orbis. So of course the most famous Aurelianus cognomen, the restorer of the world, because of having put back together clamorously the empire that was divided in three practically, or roughly, at the time of his rise as emperor. We see on the left a woman, and Aurelian stands confronted. The woman presents a wreath. Aurelian extends his right hand, holding a long scepter, vertical behind. You can see the star in the center, which our donor tells us appearing often as a symbol on Aurelian coinage, referring specifically to the Sol Invictus, just like the radiating crown. We know this about the star because it appears next to the Sol, even on the older Roman coinage since Elagabalus. We're still in the 3rd century, but as we have seen in our videos about the Sol Invictus, this was actually a much older thing, even properly within the same Roman religion. And you can see in the exergue, just below the star, KAG, like Kappa Alpha Gamma. Our donor explains us this as well. Ka is the Hellenic numeral 21, indicating the silver content, that is 1 to 20. Very depleted, as you know, in this time of Roman history. I explained this in the video about Diocletian. This is just white and copper, basically. The Western mints, because here, remember, we are in Sofia, so there was already an important difference. With the western half of the empire, used the numeral Vigentiunum instead, right? So of course in the Balkans they stuck to the Hellenic alphabet at large, right? In the West you had the Latin numerals, and so this coin is fantastic because it celebrates in century 274 here the Roman greeting of Aurelian as restitutor orbis, restorer of the world. This was accorded to him in a magnificent triumph, victorious procession. We will make a video shortly about this because it's an incredibly momentous time in Roman history. The empire could basically fall apart had not Aurelian saved it, in fact restored it, and this triumphs also the grace to the Aurelian's prisoners, Tetricus and his son, his homonymous son. These were the so-called emperors of Gaul. That, you know, we will see that, but if you know the history, it's essentially an act of mercy for a part of the empire had never really wanted to secede, but was just saying, we want to be here in Gaul with our own administration, defending ourselves from the Germanic invaders, but not creating other problems for the empire, but being something on our own, provincially speaking. But the imperial Catholic tradition had something to say about this distancing anyway, right? Aurelian's conquests of the so-called Palmyrean Empire and this Gallic Empire reunited the Roman ecumenic universal one, right? Then we pass to Constantine. This is also fantastic, really. It's a beautiful Beyond Centenionalis depicting Constantine's, referring to at least Constantine's victory in the Sarmatian War of 322, right? According to Zosimus, in the second book of his history, Constantine routed the Sarmatians and drove them back beyond the Danube, who were rallied actually to renew the fight by their leaders, and Constantine defeated them yet again, putting them to flight, taking a great number of prisoners. You know, Constantine was not particularly tender-hearted, and his expeditions across the Danube were some of the most, ruthlessly violent, and as well as successful accomplishments, both politically and strategically, leading to the death of the Sarmatian king Rausimodus. Here you can see a Sarmatian prisoner manifest this sort of hopelessness in opposition to a pretty robust empire under Constantine that had very much, talking about Aurelianus, then Diocletian, Constantine, those the guys would put the thing on also a much sounder footing in many ways. Where does this coin come from? Well, from the first officina of Lugdunum, so Lyon, France. This Centilionalis weighs 3.4 grams. It has a maximum diameter of 2 centimeters. It dates to 323, 324, so just the year after the victory over the Sarmatians. On the obverse we can read Constantinus Augustus with a laureated head. On the reverse, instead, Sarmatia devicta, so Sarmatia conquered, vanquished. And Victory herself advances, treading on the captive the left foot. She has a trophy in her right hand and the palm front in the left. Our donor explains us what the latter means. The meaning of C left and PLG crescent in the exergue on the Constantine's coin is more difficult to explain. PLG means prima Lugdunum, the first officina, workshop of Lugdunum's mint. The crescent means use symbols like this, but we do not know what they meant. Lugdunum was using nothing or dot, crescent, and dot in crescent symbols for the Sarmatia devicta types. I've tried to find something about the C in the left field, but it wasn't successful. I can only speculate based on analogies. A couple of letters sometimes appear on the reverses, and there are some abbreviations like SR, that is Salus Romanorum, or Spes Rei Publice, SF Seculi Felicitas, SP Sacra Pecunia, TF Tempor Felicitas, and others. Say 6 of the Sarmatia devicta coin types from Lugdunum have just C in the field. One type has nothing, but one type has CR. And if this wasn't an error, we can assume C and CR being shortcuts for the same phrase. And my guess would be Claritas Rei Publice, the fame, the manifest importance of the Commonwealth, which also exists as a legend on other earlier Constantine's coin. And we thank him for the explanation. The other coin is a bronze centenionalis of Emperor Iulianus from the second officina of the Sirmium Mint, today Sremska Mitrovica, Serbia. It weighs 3.4 grams. It has a maximum diameter a bit above 20 millimeters. It dates from, in fact, Iulianus' reign overall, summer 361 and June 26, 363. We see on the obverse DNFLCL Iulianus PF Augustus, which stands for Dominus Noster Flavius Claudius Iulianus Pius Felix Augustus. We see a pearl diadem, helmeted and cuirassed bust with the spear in the right hand, if it's not shown, the shield on the left, and on the reverse we read votis decennalibus multis decennalibus. That is to say, vows, prayers, as we will see now, some explanation, on the 10th anniversary of, here it's intended, the emperor's rule, more for his hoped for 20th anniversary, right? And of course here it doesn't refer to his imperial title, that his reign lasted just a few years. We'll explain it now, because he had received, of course, this faculty of command from before. We see in exergu BSIR, which stands for the second officina of the Sirmium Mint, right? So, speaking of the vow, right, the votum in a religious context, plural vota, right? These are the vows, the promise made to a deity, right? The word comes from the past participle vovere, as a result of the verbal action to vow, to promise, and so this may refer to the fulfillment of the vow, that is the thing promised, and the votum is thus an aspect of what is usually described as the contractual nature of Roman religion, which is actually not different from other religions. I'm not talking in let's say just from a practical point of view, from a strictly metaphysical point of view, because nothing you get without a compensation, a proof that you have been able to be enough of it to handle it, right? So bargaining expression, dot des, I give you what you might give, is at the root actually of the traditional concept of grace. All right. In any case, the celebration for a reign anniversary like this typically began a year before the actual anniversary. It lasted the entire year. So just like when you celebrate your birthday, technically, you are now entering in the other year that you are going to fulfill, right, in the following one, because you were living within that last year, like from the moment you celebrated the first one, right? Because you start from 0, you don't start from 1. And the Romans cared about this because it was objectively about this individual phase that much of this cyclicity and its meaning really mattered. The actual celebratory events were likely at the beginning and end of this year-long period. This means that the coins celebrating an anniversary were often struck from up to a year before that anniversary. Why the 10th anniversary? Well, because Julian was named Caesar by Constantius II in 355, and so he used this as the date of the beginning of his reign, not 360 when he was named emperor by his troops in Gaul, nor 361 when Constantius died and the Saint Iulianus was acknowledged emperor throughout the empire. Thus, it's a bit complicated perhaps, but Julian's decennalia were celebrated so as the 10th anniversary of reign, beginning say in 364, which is exactly that 10 years minus 1 that we observed before. And in late 362, when Julian needed extra coinage to prepare for the Persian War, that I made a video on in his campaign, what better type of strike than about coinage? I mean, he was thus committing himself to God, and don't say the gods, even if it's Iulianus, and I explained this extensively why, not for some intuitive, banal intuitive reason. He really should have not used the decem for the soluta, that is the completed vows, for 2 more years in this, but it served as a form of propaganda. That is to say, look, I've been around this much, I'm actually accomplishing now a great victory corresponding to this cosmic cycle revolving around my my imperium, my faculty of command, the divine medium, right, on Earth. So he was essentially signaling the Romans that he was to still be around in 2 years when the war would have been over, and so he was just saying, I made my my vow, I'm fully committed to it, so it's gonna happen, right? And of course you know how it ended, dramatically enough, but not without a hell of a display of Roman military superiority, as a matter of fact. So there's also a sad note, but it's how history went, so that shall make you reflect on the broader context, the broader beliefs of these people. The last and strongest piece here is this magnificent bronze from Hierapolis Bambuka, that is today's Memphis in Syria. A local mint was present there, and this dates to from July-August 247 until the late 249 AD. This is a coin of essentially the heir to Philip the Arab, Philip II. That is an interesting figure. Here connected with Syria. You know, these guys came from, in fact, the south of this area, of course, probably what we would call the Arabian part. This was Marcus Julius Severus Philip, Philip Jr., the son of Philip I. He was made Caesar at the age of 7, probably February or March 244. So he was Augustus at the age of 10. It's a tough time, of course. In Roman history, we are in the crisis of the 3rd century, and we'll talk about this part of especially the reign of Philip the Arab. And what is fascinating about this coin is, as our donor was pointing out, the presence of the Syrian deity, Deus, Atargatis, right? That was known by the Romans properly as the Syrian goddess. That was mistress of the city of Hierapolis. And here we find in the, some technical data here, 15 grams and a half in weight, 28 millimeters in diameter. We see the laureated, draped, and cuirassed bust of Philip II, and you have this on the obverse, the writing. This is Greek: Autokratoros Kaiseros Marcos Julius Philippus Sebastus. Right, so the Emperor Caesar Marcus Julius Philippus Augustus. Right. And then you see on the reverse, in fact, the figure of Atargatis riding a lion, wearing tall headdress, kitten and peplus, scepter in her right hand, and the left hand in lap. Right. And here, Hierapolis, it's here that talks about the goddess Atargatis of Hierapolis. Right, and it's a very interesting piece because it shows like a bit the way, of course, this is not, as far as I understand, a common coin, right? It's somehow rare, and it exemplifies in this time of the 3rd century, of course, how connected. Well, of course, every city would have their own deity, but here Atargatis has the Balat, properly the mistress of her city, and people were responsible for the well-being of this city. Right? The Latins again call them literally the Syria, so the Syrian goddess. We are in northern Syria. There were other deities, but this was the major one. Ctesias uses another name for her, that is der Keto. And here you see her, of course, in the process of riding this lion, which would have been otherwise a symbol of virility, and so the preeminence of a more chthonic force. She was primarily a goddess of fertility, as you can imagine. And it represents, just together with these other races emerging, Philip the Arab being the most exotic of Roman emperors in this regard, up to this point being a bit the representation of this Levant that had reached some important connection with the elites and rising these guys. And here Syria is being celebrated together with this city, right in Hieropolis Kyrestica. And it's again a very interesting piece, and I thank very much the donor for this beautiful gift. So this video fundamentally has in fact accomplished its mission in itself. I remind you what I told you at the beginning, right? Visit Nummi Antiqui, buy a coin or two or more, preferably, because it's really worth it. It can change unexpectedly your life. You're making a favor to someone who has really been helping this channel a lot, and it can become just a point of reference for your further numismatic interests. Again, there is plenty of coins to choose among. It's really a fantastic choice that I highly recommend, and we will keep focusing also on this. Naturally, I hope this series will continue as such, and this will reinforce just the proximity to this site. For today, however, I stop it here. I just hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please share it. Otherwise, leave a like or subscribe to my channel if you're interested in my upcoming content. As always, I thank you heartily for listening to me. I wish you a nice time, and see you next time. Bye.